we're sort of trying to look into the future of, a 5G mobile world with 8K content, with expectations that somebody, when they press play, it's going to play. And what we've started to explore the idea of is doing what we call micropops, which the CDN 1.0, the traditional thought about what CDNs do is, CDNs cache everything, right? You send them a request, they cache them. That's what we do today. But that doesn't scale to if you build the edge. If the edge is to mean 5G in, let's say, we'll get away from the Philippines because we've been talking about the Philippines too much.
Yeah, too much.
Let's say
we like
Japan.
the people in the Philippines. They're lovely, but we need to the APAC region is bigger than the Philippines.
So Japan, potentially, you would say, the number of 5G pops in Japan might be 900. And then you say, and we want to deliver 8K content. Well, the math of how much storage it would take to cache all of that doesn't really work. It does if we can go back to charging people $2,000 a megabit for CDN-ish. But other than that, there's no way to just cache ever-growing files in an infinitely growing number of places. So, and at the same time, it's going to be tough to do to deliver a good user experience without building out to those pops, because and now I get to use the word, because latency does matter as it relates to the total throughput experience. So fundamentally, CDNs cheat the speed of light. That's what we do. That's how things are faster. We put things physically closer, and it allows us to reduce the latency, which gives us more possibilities and ability to deal with packet loss and deal with congestion and things like that. So knowing that there's still a win by putting it physically closer to people, just having the conversation, where the conversation is TCP or quick protocol level conversation, closer to people, even if the content's not there, can still deliver a huge performance win if we have good connectivity from where the content is to where our micropop is. So if we have a good middle mile network, if you will, to serve the content to the micropop, and we have that micropop really well connected to that user that's 2 or 3 milliseconds away, we can deliver an experience that is exactly what they want when they press play without having to cache the file there.
We've deliberately used the Philippines, because why? Explain to the audience why we did that. Why did we go for the Philippines?
It's an interesting market because of the way the terrestrial cables don't go there, and how most connectivity is over subsea cable. But as well, at least for our purposes, most of our content is English speaking. So today, that's a specific market where we have a lot of people consuming our customers' content, and it's challenging to deliver there without having a local presence. You have options with Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, if you think of those as the big, quote-unquote, connectivity points, but none of them are particularly close. Hong Kong, if you get the right fiber path, subsea would be fastest. It's still 25 milliseconds round trip, which is almost crossing half of Europe, if not all of Europe. So, but it's also a market with really good broadband penetration and high expectations. So it's as true for the Philippines as it is for most countries that aren't emerging markets. In general, broadband speeds and penetration in Asia are better than certainly North America, and sometimes are better than Europe. So you have really well-connected eyeballs with distant peering points for the most part. It's getting better. But it's also an expensive place to be doing business still when it comes to bandwidth. It is not on the same scale to deploy infrastructure as it is in, say, North America and Europe. So a lot of things need to get better for the experience to be good. But at the same time, there's nothing but opportunity. So we're taking what we've learned in North America and Europe, South America, and trying to apply those playbooks to not just, Philippines is actually a pretty easy solve, but there's a lot of Southeast Asia that's harder. But at the end of the day, it's how do we continue to build that edge, what today is the CDN edge, what in the future might be the 5G edge, in places that don't have the data center density today. You can't just go into 15 data centers in the Philippines that are well connected and well peered. They don't exist. So hopefully the idea of micropops and 5G edges allow us to have some penetration in those places where there's not a traditional sort of carrier neutral data center environment.